In a previous video, we went ahead and downloaded brackets and we looked at the difference between Notepad, which we're not really going to be using anymore, and brackets. Brackets makes things a lot easier. And if you're not familiar with it, go ahead and check out the website and go to the previous video on when we downloaded it and we looked at the differences between these two. But what we're going to do in this video is we're going to now go ahead and close down Notepad and we're going to work directly in brackets. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead like a normal is not this is not a big project, but really this is how projects work. We're going to start with the skeleton of our web page, which most of the pages will have, let's say, and then we're going to go ahead and add the CSS on top of that. Now the skeleton itself is not the box model. The box model exists within CSS, which is cascading style sheets, which is really the beautification of your application. It has nothing to do with the content itself. So the first thing we need to do when we're building a website or coming up with an idea is make some sort of outline, some sort of template. So you can draw this template out. And a lot of times that's exactly what a lot of designers do. So here I am inside of PowerPoint. I'm going to go ahead and close this down. And I'm just going to kind of draw out how I want my web page to look for now. I'm going to go ahead and take these shapes here, and I'm going to go all the way across here, and that's going to be my website. And then I am going to drag another one. Let's see here. This I think will be my content. So I'm going to put content. Or web site content. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the color on this just so we can see the difference. I'm going to go ahead and get another one and put it over here. And then this over here will be not necessarily my content, but this will be like other posts or links. Or maybe even, it's possible I can even put my menu here. So it's up to, we may even want a bar across here. It's up to you. But this is how I'm going to do it for now. And I'm going to go ahead and change the color on this so we can know that that's a different div. These are divs basically that we're talking about here. And now you notice this last part down here, I'm going to put a div down there also. It's going to be the area that we work with. Drag this down here. And this is going to go all the way across the screen. And this right here will be the other. It's going to be the other information right there, and I can go ahead and close that down. So there we have it. Really simple, straightforward. We have the outline to our website. Now, of course, when we're building something more complex, it's going to be a little bit more complex and put more thought into the design. But just for the sake of understanding how all of this works together, we got our technology, our IDE. We have our story that we're going to go ahead and put this in there, and we have an idea of a game that we're going to make. So right now we're at the stage of where we're building the website so people can have more information. And then we're going to put CSS on there, and we're going to build our skeleton. So now let's go ahead and go over to brackets, and let's start building our skeleton. So I already have the HTML. I have the head, and I'm already ready with HTML5, which I really haven't been using just yet, but I set it up there just so I can be ready with HTML5 when we actually get there. So now what I'm going to do is I think we can go ahead and start making our body. So right under the head, I'm going to type body. So basically we're making our skeleton. So I'm going to be quiet a little bit. I'm going to just go ahead and type this out. Inside the body, I'm going to put a div. Now, this div will represent the content, the container for everything. It's going to represent the container for everything. So not the content, but the container for everything that I have in here. So I'm going to call this div, I'm going to give it a class name. I'm going to say it equals. So I have this div here. Now I want to go ahead and do the other posts div or the menu. So right under that, I'm going to make another div, make a closing tag. It automatically closes that up inside this div here. And if you're not familiar with what I'm doing, there's another video on this that I have just on CSS and talking about creating these divs. So if you're a bit confused about what I'm doing here, make sure you watch that other video. So on this one, I'm going to call this, I'm going to give it a class name again. Now there's a difference between classes and an ID. For instance, instead of a class here, I can say ID and then I can give it a name, but I'm going to give this a class name. The difference between the two is that a class, there's a class can only, it exists within a multitude of things. For instance, there could be a class of a div. So there could be a multiple blog post classes, right? So there can be multiple divs with a class name named blog post. When it comes to an ID, you can only have, an ID must be unique. So you can't have two divs with the same ID. That's one of the major differences that you want to be concerned with for right now. I'm going to call this other posts. Within this other post, I'm going to go ahead and create a div in here because I'm going to duplicate this div here, and I'm just going to call it other. And maybe what I'll do is make about 2 or 3 of these. All right, so we have these others, and remember, classes can have the same, you can have multiple divs with the same class name, so that's not even a problem right there. So we have our other post div. Now we want to go ahead and move on to, we want to create some clear fixes for these divs, and we'll get into that a little bit later, which means we're going to make some space in here, but we're going to use a div to make the space. And here's how we do that. We're going to go ahead and create a div, and we're going to close the div, and then we're going to give it a class name. And that class name will be clear fix. Okay, so now that we have the clear fix class here, and again, this is not extremely important for you to understand it right now because we're going to be dealing with this in the CSS. So, and then I'm going to go here to this div, and I'm going to go ahead and type the class, and I'm going to call that something like author info would be good. Just keep in mind, you got to put these in quotes. This would cause an error if we don't put these in quotes, so I almost messed up. Now, normally when I'm doing this, I do like to do the quotes first, and then I put the data inside. So, and then I can go ahead and close this off. So right now, if I open up my website, well, my page. So if I go to File, and then Live Preview, what'll happen is it wants to open this up inside of the browser. So it'll open it up inside of your default browser and basically give you a live view of exactly what you're working with. Now, right now, as you can see, it doesn't seem like anything is here. Well, actually, this stuff is here. When I right-click on this and I view the page source, you can see all the stuff that I put is there, but basically it's just divs. So what I'm going to have to do right now is I'm going to have to start placing information inside of these divs so we can kind of see this thing come to life. And remember, you want to put your own information in here. Don't necessarily put mine unless you're going to put mine and then replace it, use it as a template and replace it later, that's pretty a good idea too. So you can go ahead and do that. And I'm going to put my website, or how about and then I'm going to save that. I can go ahead and refresh this. And you can see that up there, right? So this is working. Now let me put something else in here. Let me say put an H1 tag inside of my content. I want to be able to see this. So I'm going to put an H1 tag. As I'm typing the H1, you can see it come up. And then as I close the H1 tag, it automatically closes it for me. And then I'm going to come over here and refresh, and there it is. So I'm going to go ahead and type this first part, and I'm going to pause video so you won't have to see me type everything, and I'll come back in a second. So what I have here is this lorem ipsum text here. It's just a whole bunch of gibberish. If you were to type lorem ipsum inside of the on the web, you'll go ahead and pull up this website, and this is all you need to do is just lorem ipsum right here. You'll go ahead and take this, and then you'll download this and just stick it in there. So a lot of websites have this when it, it's just templated text that you want to just show that there'll be some text there. So I created this paragraph tag, and then I gave it a class of main text. And we're going to be using this classes in CSS to be able to access these properties here, or these tags here. I gave it an H2 header here, and I also made another paragraph tag with the class date in there, and I put the date in there. I have this H1 tag, which we had just a second ago, and then below that I have a blank. Right now there's no image in there, there's no link in here, and it's not an image, so it's just a link here. So I'm giving you this example here. I'm going to put some information there. I don't exactly have the link right now. Now, if you go down here, what you'll see is I have another one of these, H2 tag, and then I have the main text here again, just like I have it up here. And I'm using classes because I want to be able to use the main text throughout. And maybe this right here can be so when I add the image here, I'm going to go ahead and fill in this source. But for right now, I don't have an image here. All the rest of the stuff is exactly the same. So now when I go to the website here, I'm going to refresh this. And now you'll see, aside from that translate, you'll see it's really just the raw data until I get to putting in the rest of the website. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in this part right here. And this is going to be fairly simple. In between this, I'm going to put some generic text in here. So whatever you want for yours, you go ahead and put it there. You'll get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. First, let me save it. Control S, save it, and then refresh this over here. And you can see that it's down here with that little image tag because there's no real image there. Now, all the way at the bottom, you'll see this clear, and you'll see the author. And we're going to get to that when we get to the CSS. And it looks like we're actually ready to go to the CSS. Let me just make sure that I'm not missing anything. So I have this here. Yep. Everything seems to be fine. And another cool feature of brackets is every time I click it, I think I talked about this before, it shows me the end tag. So I know whether I have an error in tags if I'm clicking on a tag and I don't see an end tag next to it. So that's another good thing. These visual clues as to whether you have good formation or not. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to go ahead and format this with the box model. I'll see you then.